So, before I forget, can I just start off with a question to both of you? Fascinating and really great presentations, thank you. And gave me a real insight in terms of why I'm getting a lot of pressure from primary and secondary schools in the UK, but also from an employer's perspective. The thing that struck me was the similarities in terms of our approaches, but for some reason the system's not working. Can I just get your thoughts on what the blocks are for the sorts of changes that we agree need to happen, but don't seem to be happening?
Yeah, I'll bring up one of my points. I believe we've had the wrong focus. I believe we haven't looked at the individual as the one we design around. And I'll put a caution up. I actually think individualism has gone too far in our society. So that's another problem we have. But I think one of the questions there in terms of institutional learning, the individual has not been the subject. And I think in your presentation for Changemaker as well is really about co-creation. It's about my role in the bigger whole and how can I contribute and not just be a receiver. So I think that's probably one of the reasons.
Yeah, I think it's because, well, a very, very large answer, but before, I would say maybe until 90s or something, the world was in that sense more stable, that we would have the education system to produce workers for the economy. It was just really, if you really simplify. But now I think the big question is that why do we actually educate? What is the whole working life? In a sense that we are facing a large disruption in economy, that what is it that companies do? We're looking for purpose within the companies. We're looking for the reasoning that why do we actually need companies for do the transactions that they were made to do in the beginning. And now we all see the Uber and Airbnb and all this new kind of platform economies where you actually don't need the company because you do the interaction in a different way. Of course we will need workers in the future as well, but I think we're facing such a big disruption in the whole society that we are kind of lacking the purpose of all this. And I would agree also from the individualism that we can see also in the organizational setting that we have been more in the world where we develop people. That's why I hate my title in a way, because I don't want to develop anyone. I want to create possibilities for people to develop themselves. So that's also another thing that we're kind of creating the platforms for people, for them to develop. But then on the other hand, I agree with you on that we have gone too far, that we cannot move the whole risk of development into people, to individuals, that we just say that, well, you just have to, you just have to think of yourself that what is it that you need to learn, while at the same time all the companies and all the educators are thinking the same thing. So now we're kind of saying that, okay, well, maybe Mike, you can decide on yourself, and okay, well, what should I do? So I think we should kind of, like you said, co-create together that what are the kind of skills that we actually need. And like you were referring, that maybe the one thing also is that we have been focusing too much on the what side in learning instead of how side. And so while we are now moving that how are we changing behaviors, what are the kind of skills that we need, it dramatically also affects on, of course, that how to teach those skills, or is it even teaching anymore? So I think there's very many points in that.
I have a question for you then.
Okay.
I find it's kind of I guess it is a reply to the question you asked as well. It's company is what we call where we work, and it's called company for a reason. We are there together, creating something, doing something. And having attended university myself, that has never been the focus of my degree. It's been about me proving to the educational system that I'm best, that I'll do better, that I'm best, me proving better, not about how well does my company do? How does well do my friends, my classroom with me doing? Does your university kind of prepare people for the reality that's out there, which really is you're going to work in company with others?
Yeah, that's a very good point, because I think predominantly the purpose of universities has always been seen to be the creation of knowledge through research. So research feeding into teaching, and that solitary task of researching at different levels has been the focus. We're trying to move to that, but it's hard, because there's an expectation on the students that what we're going to give them for their tuition fee is a degree that will get them a better job, because for many of them that is still what they perceive that is going to happen. Whereas actually, during that first year, we're putting them out into disruptive situations to challenge that thinking. They come with a clear idea. That first year is about blowing that idea away, and then the second and third year is about putting it back together in a different way. But that's hard. For 30% of our students, they don't want that. What they want is just to learn, to get the job with the accountant, the lawyer, guys like you, yeah? Because they think it's easy. For the other third, there's another third who are persuadable, and by engagement and experiencing that physical learning that you talked about, they do see that it's more than the degree. But there is a third that come because that's the way we are. And whether it is the lawyer who gets sent out to work in a community in Kenya to work on some land dispute or whatever, they grow through that experience. Now, we haven't quite got it right, because they still seem to think that teamwork is an assessment-based competency. Teamwork is a way of being, and I think that comes with experience. So if we can prepare our students at undergraduate level to be prepared to work with others, to understand what it means to co-create, understands human-centered design, can take those skills with them, then we will begin to see that paying back. So we've got a way to go.
One question to you as well. I was just studying or seeing some kind of a list of future skills. I look at this list every day, but now I saw one where there was very much pointed out to multidisciplinary. And this would, at least in Finland, it has been a lot and it has even, we have combined universities, and there's been a lot in that sector. And I also believe that it's one of the kind of key items. How would you think of that in terms of how, from your perspective, that when you are doing now the change, and how present is that in your agenda?
I wish we'd had the conversation about individualism a little bit earlier. One of the proposals we put forward was, at the very beginning of this journey, was that we would get rid of every single discipline. That you wouldn't come to our university to do an undergraduate degree in accounting or philosophy or English or whatever. But that actually we would just offer 5 degrees. An undergrad, a postgrad, a BSc, BA, BSc, MA, MSc, PhD. That would be it. But we would work with the student to design their own course. Now, for me, I'd seen that operating, and I just felt that that was the way to go, that actually enabling a student to grow through learning, to design their own pathway, would be the ultimate. I hadn't banked on things like timetabling and rooms and things like that. So there are sort of systems issues that were out of the way. However, what we did was allow a student to pick any joint combination that they wanted within our existing framework. So if a student was on a footwear design course and they wanted to learn about philosophy, they could put those two together if they wanted. So we now offer, rather than less, we offer 14,001 different combinations, and we accommodate those for every student, but teach them within the existing framework. It's not ideal either, and that's why I said about the individualism. It's much more about, for us, what we've learnt is you still need to tie those disciplines together in some way. You need to make them relevant, otherwise you're teaching 2 separate degrees. And I think that's down to faculty buy-in and how you structure the curriculum.
It's an interesting. I went to school in Edinburgh. I actually dropped out of business school and went to art school. And the theory was this. After the Industrial Revolution, we started specializing. So basically, when learning came to Industrial Revolution, it was about getting us into doing the tasks needed of us. Prior to Industrial Revolution, we had a degree much closer to what still is the arts degree, which is a broad degree about asking questions of society, of ourselves, and how can I further it. So I actually dropped out of business school, which I felt was specializing me, and studied art school, where it is just one degree, you get an arts degree, but actually they also said, if you want to take photos, we're not going to teach you how to take a photo. We'll teach you how to ask good questions, and then you can go out and you can learn how to take the photo, and so on and so on. And it's interesting that we have this school system called arts schools, which are probably our most advanced pedagogically kind of school systems, yet they are most places disregarded as not very interesting for people. But it sounds like the challenge you were having, you should have gone to art school.
Well, to be honest, I think you're right. And one of the beauties of, one of the unintended consequences of the Changemaker designation that we had was that it moved the conversation about innovation and social innovation in particular out of the business school. Because, is there anybody here from a business school? No, good. Business school aren't very entrepreneurial, I find. The most entrepreneurial schools, since we've got the designation, are the arts, because they look at the world and project it in a very different way, and by doing that, you see where the innovation is. So one of the things we did as a result last year was we merged our Faculty for Science and Technology with our School of Arts. So we now have arts students working with science and technology students. And boy, is that fun to watch play out. But we're hoping that that creativity that a technical school seems to drive out of engineers in particular is going to be sparked by the artists.
I'd actually point out with the entrepreneurial discussion, one point is that what we're seeing, at least in Finland, and I would assume that it's very much in at least in Western countries already quite a long time, is that we are moving into a world where we are not working into a one employer anymore. We have more and more people who are just giving like their 2 days in the work for this company, 1 day for this, 1 day for that. And I think that's kind of a transdisciplinary agenda in the world of work, that you don't actually, you don't think anymore that I have this, okay, I graduate and then work for this one company, but it's become really more fractioned, and the future will be more and more so that we have individual entrepreneurs who are just selling their skills however they like, which of course it's good in terms of learning, because you learn much more if you're, in very many different kind of places. But I think it's also kind of, it demands even more from the educational system in a way that how do you prepare your people also for this kind of way of working, that it's more of, it's not like, okay, I build a company and then I work for that, but it's something in between. That it's not like I'm a private, I have a private company, or I work for the Finnair, but it's something more blurry. That and it could be that even that there are very many different. Okay, I do some handicrafts here, and then I have a cafeteria with my friend, and then I do some consulting here, and then I design some web pages for someone, and I have like 5 different jobs. It's ever evolving, so I think this is also one aspect of work which will affect on education, of course, the learning at work as well.
And I suppose that feeds into a question I was going to
time
ask.
is up.
Sorry?
I think our time is up.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay. Didn't see that. Okay. Wow.
But sorry,
We'll ask that question over lunch then.
But I think embracing fussiness, that's what you say. Many disciplines.
I'm going to steal that phrase because I think that's brilliant. Thank you.
That's why I gave it to you. Thank you.
Thank you all for listening.
Thank you.